All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. I got my sidekick here today. She's decided to come in here during office hours, so that's a little Hazel dog. Um, but we'll go ahead and get started here. If you got your questions, go ahead and post them. It's either going to be below the video if you're on a mobile device. If you're on a laptop or desktop computer, it's going to be to the right of the video. Should be where you can post your questions. So I always start with questions that were asked up to an hour before we got started. So Michael S., I'm going to be starting with John L. asking about a realistic recipe for game improvement. But Michael S., Mike G., Tom M., John B., these are all questions that came in earlier today outside of office hours. So if you're still here and you want to get your question answered, all you got to do is copy and paste your question in there, and I will answer it later on in the office hours. The reason why I do this is because I want to make sure that I'm answering questions for people who are here watching it live. If someone asks a question at midnight last night and they're not here to get their question answered, well, the person that came on here and who's here waiting to get their question answered, it's not fair to them, right? So that's why I do that. So just if you're new or whatever, just keep that in mind for future office hours. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. I gotta find who I was starting with. Where did it go? All right, so actually John's it was not the one that he was at 148. So it's actually going to be Nick O. So John L., if you're on here, just go ahead and repost it. It's possible that I may come back to those questions if I run out of questions, but that doesn't always happen. If the questions keep on coming, then that doesn't happen. But sometimes it does. All right, so Nick O. asks, Q, just thank you for answering a query of a couple weeks ago. How to address a ball that is sat low in the first cut of rough. Your advice has helped a lot. P.S. Have you ever seen Clay duff a shot? Oh, I have absolutely seen Clay duff a shot. Happens all the time. He's not perfect, folks. He's not perfect. But yeah, I've seen it for sure. But glad the advice helped. And keep up the good work. All right, so Jamie D says, I am working through the Distance Fix program and have managed 105 miles per hour. However, with the catapult drills, I have often fat, thin top shank. Should I be bothered about this as I carry on with the program? So now when you're giving your 100% effort swings, the contact can often be very poor. And that's completely fine. If it's your 100% effort swing where you're getting the big shoulder turn, you're giving 100% effort, it's likely that you're going to hit some poorly, right? That's not the idea there. The idea when you're giving 100% effort and you're working on these drills is to get your speed as high as possible, because as that speed goes up, so is your playing speed. Your playing speed is going to go along with it. So let's say you started out at 90 miles per hour and you got to where 105 miles per hour was your max, 100% effort, everything you got kind of swing. Well, if you continue to do that through what's called neural adaptation, which we also talk about in the 20-minute distance fix, that's in the quick start 2 video. Your playing speed is probably going to go up to near 100 miles per hour, right? So that's part of what's going on. Now, if your playing speed, if you're having those issues, fat, thin, top, shank kind of shots, yes, that is an issue if it's your playing speed. If it's your playing speed swing, I would say we want to get that worked out. We want to figure out, okay, well, we're getting more speed while we're doing this, but why, when I tone it down to a speed that I'm comfortable with out on the course, do I end up with all these mishits, right? So I'd be looking at your spine angle, right? Because a lot of times when I see people do the power turn, what ends up happening, I'm not sure what's going on in your swing. It would just be something you would have to look at on video. But I often see with people who try to get more of a shoulder turn, what happens is they'll go like this to get more shoulder turn, right? They'll turn and get their back angled toward the target. And when that happens, you're going to have trouble. There's going to be, that's asking for trouble. Basically, you can get those fat and thin and top and shank shots. All those things can happen from having an unstable spine. So that's what I would look at. Make sure that when you're turning and having that proper angled away position at the top, and you're not trying to get more shoulder turn by leaning toward the target, because that's just asking for issues. Like I said, that's probably what's going on. There's a good chance that's what's going on. But I would look at that if that is the issue. The 20-minute distance fix, you're not likely going to ingrain these things right away in week one, right? It's going to take some time and some repetition. So just like with that, I would go through the stable fluid spine course and start working through those to make sure you're in the right position. So John E says, did you have a launch monitor special price? So the launch monitor that we say is the best one out there, because we've tested a ton of them, is going to be the PRGR. As far as I know right now, they are still on back order. Now, we don't technically sell them. We just provide a link for you to go get them. And what I can do, I'll actually I'll put the link to that. I believe, let me see if it's still on back order. Supposedly they were supposed to get some in toward the end of May. But let's see, I don't know. Looks like it's still saying that it's still on back order, at least on our, maybe we haven't updated ours. I'll have to email our crew to see what's going on there. But I'll put the link in there. What you can do is you can get on a list. Put your email in there. So follow this webpage that I'm gonna put in there, and follow that, and then the link that I just posted in the comments there, and then you can go and sign up for the basically it's a waiting list. Essentially, you're gonna get a notification whenever they become back in stock. So hopefully they come back in stock soon, so that way people can get one. So Angel G or Angel G, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. Excuse me. It says, hi Q, I'm 46 and feel strong enough to hit the ball. However, my driver 9.5 degrees and my 3-wood 12 degrees go almost for the same distance. I don't have a speed monitor device, but I believe that my ball flight at around 225, which divided by 2.6 gives me 85 miles per hour, which is extremely low. My fairway 3 goes at least 200. Feeling quite frustrated here. It's my first week. So I would recommend working through the 20-minute distance fix. If you're wanting to add speed, then I would recommend working through our 20-minute distance fix course. Now, hitting your driver 225 and getting your 3-wood 200 yards, I would say that seems pretty normal. I wouldn't call that the same, almost the same distance. That seems pretty normal. So myself, a really good drive for me would be about 300 yards total. If I hit my 3-wood, that would be about 280 yards if I smoked one. Off the ground, it's a lot different. Off the ground, if I smoked one, it's probably more like 260, 265 if I really hit one good, just because it has more spin when you hit it off the ground, so it doesn't roll out as far. But yeah, that's basically what I end up with. So that seems about right to me. If you're hitting your driver 225, that would be a 3-wood that's about 200. And yeah, you're probably somewhere in that 85 to 90 miles per hour. Keep in mind that 2.6, that's on a flushed shot. That's if you hit it good, right? So you could be hitting it poorly and swinging at 90, 95 miles per hour, and you just maybe you hit it with a slice. Because if you get the ball with any kind of glancing blow or not in the center of the face, it's not going to transfer as much energy to the golf ball. So if you hit it in the heel, the toe, top of the face, low on the face, that's not going to transfer as much energy to the golf ball. So you could be swinging 95 miles per hour and hit it 225 because it was a misstrike. If you put any curvature on the ball, so if you come in with the face open to your path or closed to your path, that's also going to reduce the amount of energy that you're putting into the golf ball, which could result in the same thing. You put those two together, could result in the same thing. If you're hitting down on the golf ball, right, that's going to be more of a glancing blow into the ball. That's also going to reduce the amount of distance or your smash factor, which is basically your ball speed ratio to your club head speed ratio. Ideally, for a driver, you'd want that to be about 1.5. You want your ball speed to be about 1.5 times your club head speed. That would be considered a perfect strike with the driver. The USGA really doesn't allow you to get much more than that with the sanctions that they put on, the rules that they put on how drivers can be made. So it's possible you're probably swinging faster. You're probably swinging close to 90 because I imagine you're not hitting every single one perfectly flush. So that's probably close. But if you're looking to increase your club head speed, go through that 20-minute distance fix. That's what you need to do. That is the best way to get your speed up there and start hitting the golf ball further. So to get to the 20-minute distance fix, all you got to do is go to the top of the page there, click the house icon. That's going to take you to the home page. If you scroll down on the home page, you will see a list of all the courses that we offer on the website. Select that 20-minute distance fix. It's going to be toward the top there, and get started. Get that quick start. If you do anything, at least do the quick start in there, because it's kind of a condensed version of the entire course. But it's just a 3-week course, 2 range sessions, one kind of home session that you can do. And that's really all it takes to really, we're seeing people gain 10, 12 miles per hour. And that's like, 20 plus yards, 20, 30 yards. So highly recommend you work through it because it's going to help you to hit the ball a lot further. All right. So Paul W. says, Q, your recommendations on how to make consistent ball contact when on a downhill lie with the ball above your feet and hitting a lob wedge 50 to 80 yards. I usually have 3 or 4 of these around. I often hit this shot heavy and come up short. Change my swing plane, ball position, shoulder level. Thanks. P.S. Looking good with your weight loss. Oh, thanks. So it's shoulder level is really what it comes down to. You're going to go with the slope. So if you imagine if I had, grab a club here, if I had an uphill lie, right? I had an uphill lie, so I was kind of like this, right? And I kept my shoulders basically the same. Well, I would be really chopping into that hill, right? I'd be really chopping into that hill. Now, if I had a downhill lie, right, and I tried to stay angled away, I'd be probably hitting that shot fat, right? So really what all you got to do is go with the slope. If you have an uphill lie, get your shoulders in line with that, right? Keep your balance, get your shoulders in line with that. You can move it a little bit further up in your stance if you want for an uphill lie and a little bit further back for a downhill lie, but mainly you're just trying to swing with the slope. Don't fight with the slope. Swing with the slope, and you'll have a lot more success. Now, keep in mind, you're going to hit the ball much higher out of an uphill lie. You're going to hit the ball is going to come out quite a bit higher because the hill, that's adding loft, right? So if you take this and you hit on an uphill slope, you're adding all that loft. So you may not need, 50 to 80 yards, you're with a lob wedge. If you're hitting on a pretty severe uphill slope, that ball is going to go a mile up in the air. The lob wedge already goes pretty high. You probably don't want it to go much higher. So you may want to consider when hitting on an uphill lie from 50 to 80 yards, you may want to consider a 50-degree wedge or a 56-degree, something with lower loft that's going to help you to kind of match the same kind of trajectory that you would have with the lob wedge. So that could just take some practice. But next time I'd say from 50 to 80 yards, unless you want that really high to hoist it up, because you're probably, keep in mind, you're going to lose distance with that. Unless you're wanting to hoist it up way in the air, I would de-loft it. Use a little bit less loft, choke up on the club. That'll give you a little bit more control. Use a little bit less loft and hit the same kind of shot essentially. And that's going to allow you to get some good distance. Now with the ball back in your stance, it's kind of the opposite, right? So the ball is going to come out a lot lower. So 50 to 80 degree shot. Keep in mind that lob wedge is probably going to come out boom a little bit. So you may not need to swing as hard as you think you normally would. All right. But what you can do to compensate for that a little bit is you can choke up, give yourself a little bit more control, have the ball a little bit further back in your stance, have your shoulders go with the slope and plan on that ball coming out. And it's also probably going to run a little bit too, because it's going to come out a lot lower. So when it hits, its angle of descent is going to be flatter, right? So it's probably going to hit and roll out a little bit more than what you would expect. So play that to happen a little bit, depending on the severity of the slope. If it's not much of a difference, then I would just play, turn your shoulders with the slope, and it's just going to come out a little bit lower, a little bit higher. But if it's a pretty severe slope, understand that it's definitely going to get a little bit higher, a little bit lower. And understand that on that uphill one as well, we want to make sure that we're getting to our lead side. We're not hanging back. If you hang back, that's probably where because it's a little bit harder to keep your balance. So I'd make sure you're getting to your lead side, put an emphasis on that, and that will allow you to not hit those chunk shots. And then it's kind of the same thing. You may, on the downhill lie, you may kind of want to slide forward a little bit, and that can be disastrous as well. So try to keep your balance the best you can when hitting these shots. And we're not going all out 100% effort on these shots, or not even like your full kind of playing speed swing. I would even try to take a 3/4 swing, no more than a 3/4 swing on these severe slope shots, because it's just too hard to keep your balance if you're taking that full swing. It's just a little bit more difficult to keep your balance. So you may be a little bit more consistent. You may be better off taking more club and taking a 3/4 swing versus the full swing with a longer club. So Robert P says, when in the swing, should you feel the forearms rolling over and releasing through impact? So feel is really relative. So what you feel and what I feel may be two different things. But hey, if that helps you square up the face and helps you get more speed, then sure, that's what you should feel. But for somebody else, that may not be how they feel. And there's all kinds of ways to release the club. The main thing that needs to happen when you release the club is you want the club to release out in front, right? So whether you have kind of more of an under release, like a Jordan Spieth. I mean, what did he have? 7 birdies in a row today, right? So if you have more of an under release, kind of like this, like a Jordan Spieth, right, versus maybe like a Rory McIlroy, who's more of like this, right, more of kind of a rolling over kind of release. There's lots of ways to do it. So it's a matter of what works best for you. What allows you to be in this position here and allows you to hit the golf ball the best? What allows you to square up the face of it the best and have control of that? So it's, like I said, feels relative, and also what works specifically for you is going to be relative, because there's lots of ways to do it. The main thing is, if you look at Rory and you look at Jordan Spieth, you're going to see that club splitting their forearms out in front about 40 degrees, whether they're rolling the hands over like this or whether they have more of an under kind of square release, kind of like that, like you see with Jordan. So it's really personal preference. So Stephen B says, looking for a drill or two to help shorten a really long backswing. So really the main thing I would say there is I would just try to start your downswing sooner. That's really all I would try to do. So make sure, a lot of times with people who have really long backswings, they're really kind of folding up their arms. And one thing to keep in mind too is that a long backswing is not necessarily a bad thing. John Daly, I mean, a lot of great players. Dustin Johnson, Bubba Watson. I mean, these guys are all fantastic players. Freddie Couples, long swing. Davis Love III. A lot of long swings out there that have won a lot of money. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. May not be something that you want to change. But hey, if you find that you hit the golf ball much, much better and you don't lose much difference with much distance with a shorter swing, then by all means, it might be fine to do that. But the way I would try to do it is I would just try to start your downswing sooner. So I would basically get to where your transition is starting to happen. If you're way back here, something like that. And that's the other thing too, is your long backswing may be from a poor spine angle. So if your backswing is like this because you're leaning toward the target at the top, then you're going to want to work through the stable fluid spine course. Because that right there, if I have my spine angled away, you can see how that is shorter than that, right? So I would look at your spine angle first and see what's going on there. If it's a spine angle issue, then stable fluid spine. You're going to want to work through that course, get to where you're essentially, if we draw two lines outside your torso here, we want to be nice and angled away here at address. And then as we go up to the top of the swing, we want to remain in that, like almost like we have a barrel around us. We want to remain inside that and stay angled away as we go up to the top and get that good shoulder turn, right? If we're going like that, that can make us go really long. And that could actually be the issue. It's not a long swing, but a poor spine angle at the top. But if everything looks good and you just want to shorten up your swing, then I would just try to start your transition sooner. So basically, as soon as your hands get to about right here, I would be starting the transition. So that way they only go a little bit further and you're already stepping on it and going in the downswing. That's what I'd be trying to do. So I would go do some practice swings. I would go up to right here, about this far or however, just short of where you want the swing to end, right? So if you want your swing to end, about right here, I would say go to about lead arm parallel. And I would do some drills. I would go up to here, start my transition, get down and go up, and then just practice that essentially. Just practice that over and over and over until you add some fluidity to it after a while, and then add the golf ball to it once you get comfortable with that. But that's how I would shorten it. But I would imagine a lot of times when I see long swings, it's because of the spine angle. All right. So Michael S. says, when working through the Top Speed Golf system, do you recommend that you complete level 1 and then move on, or do you recommend completing all levels in each category before moving on? That's really personal preference. I've seen success doing it either way, so it's really up to you. There's no right or wrong way. As long as you're working your way through it and getting in the reps and working on the pieces that you need to, then you'll see success. So like I said, it's really personal preference. I think that some people, if you like to kind of mix it up and you kind of getting bored working on spine angle for the 6,000 reps or whatever it is, then you may want to bop around and go all the level 1s, all the level 2s, all the level 3s, and do them that way. But if you're someone who really wants to make sure something's working well before you work on to the next piece, and you don't mind working on the same thing, then for a lot of reps, then working on all the working on level 1, level 2, level 3, then moving on to the next piece, level 1, level 2, level 3, that could be for you. So it's really personal preference. There's no right or wrong way to do it. Like I said, I've seen success doing it either way. So really just do whatever you think works best for you. So Patrick G says, hi, I need to know the proper start and backswing and downswing and the sequence in both back and down. So basically what I would try to do, and the way the backswing starts, again, these are all right, folks. So we're getting into where we're getting a little bit too, we're worrying about the small things in the swing that don't matter that much. So that's really what the Top Speed Golf system is. It focuses on the pieces that matter the most. Pretty much everything else in between is mostly just personal preference, what works best for you. Some people work better if their backswing kind of starts with their hips kind of going first. Some people, it's better if the arms go back first. Some people, it's better if it's the shoulders that go back first. It's really do what works best for you. I mean, the club's gonna get up there no matter what. Just do whatever works best for you to get the club up there in the right position. So there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just a matter of what works best for you. So like I said, that's getting to where these are things that don't matter that much. I would try to hit some shots where you're just thinking about the arms bringing the club back initially, and then it's kind of the hips, and then it's the shoulders. I think the easiest way to kind of do it is just to think about, okay, I need to get my club up to here, right? And the easiest way to understand where you want to be at the top of the swing or where you should be at the top of the swing is you can do this drill right here. Get in your address position, hinge the club up to 90 degrees, just like this, right? Put the club up near your right shoulder, basically over your right shoulder. And now let's turn the shoulders and turn the hips, right? There's my top of the backswing position. So I know I want to get right here at the top of the swing, right? So if you think about the end place, now just bring the club up there. Bring the club up there. Whoever you brought that club up to that position, that's how you should turn. That's how you should get to in the backswing. All right. So there's lots of ways that you can do it, but that's the easiest way to do it, because you don't have to change any motor pattern. You don't have to. You're just bringing the club up to a spot, right? You're bringing the club up to a position. So if for you it's easier to hinge the wrist first and then turn the shoulders, and then I would just look on video and be like, oh, well, I do this, I do that. That looks like what I do initially. I wouldn't try to think, okay, I need to turn my shoulders now and I need to turn no. Get the club up here, all right? Then think about, okay, how do I get the club up there? And then I would just do it. There's really no, I wouldn't overthink that essentially, because it's not necessary. It's putting work into something that's completely unnecessary. I'd much rather you work on things that absolutely matter in the golf swing, like the stuff that's in the Top Speed Golf system. So as far as the downswing sequence, so we need to be getting a little bit of a weight shift to our lead side before we finish that backswing. All right. So that's essentially how this works. The best way to get this downswing sequence, because once you get it started, everything else will fall into place more easily. So what I'd recommend working on is something called the step drill. And what you're doing in this drill is you're starting with your feet together, and then you're starting that backswing, and you're starting to step forward at the same time. And what that's doing is that's giving you the sensation of getting that weight shift moving forward before you finish the backswing, which is what good players do, right? Because what that does is that allows you to initiate your hips, and then to initiate your torso and the shoulders, the arms, the hands, the club. If you go up to the top of the swing and then you start the downswing with no weight shift, and it's just going to be all arms, you're just going to throw, and you're going to release the club early, you're going to cast, you're going to have lots of issues. So we need to have that weight shift as you're reaching the top of the backswing, and that way now I'm in my lead leg and I can rotate my hips, and then my shoulders can follow, then my arms can follow, and then the club can follow after that, and I can get that nice release out in front. So there's a great drill, and I'll find it for you, and I'll put it in the comments here. So the video is it's BR14, and so BR014 is what it is. And it's actually, I think the title of it's how to start the downswing. Yep, correctly. So you can start your downswing with all arms. You can do that. That's completely fine, but it's not the most effective way to do it, and you're going to have a hard time getting the club to release properly. So wow, we got a lot of questions. So I'm going to have to zoom through these. I just scrolled through and saw we have a ton of questions. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on anybody's question anymore. I'm going to be kind of answering them quickly. So I just pasted it in there in the comments there if you want to go check it out. So let me see where I left off. And like I said, I'm going to be kind of going through these fairly quickly because I noticed we have a ton of questions now. And then Patrick G went on to say, hi, also, when I start swing back, does the left shoulder go down toward my right knee? Yeah, so as you start the downswing, you're kind of going down like that. Yep. So you're going to be working on that in that step drill. So I recommend working through that step drill. All right, so that's my PRGR link. All right, so Bill C says, I just joined Top Speed Golf. I practice at home a lot since I have 6 acres with outdoor mats and practice golf balls. Will this be okay to do the drills on practice mats? I also have golf radar to measure club head speed. I do not go to the driving range often. Yeah, you can work through the entire system doing that. Absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like you got a sweet setup. That's completely fine. You can hit off of mats. It's better to hit off a turf because you're going to get better feedback whether you chunked it or anything like that. I would recommend if you're hitting off of a mat, to get one of these guys. This is a AccuStrike mat, and you can see this guy right here. You place it; it's the same thickness as most mats, so you just kind of place it next to it. And it's really, really cool because it gives you great feedback. It tells you, okay, are you chunking it? Because off of a mat, a lot of times you can hit 3 inches behind the golf ball, and it'll feel like it was a pured golf shot. But the reality is that if you were hitting off a real turf, it would have been not so much. Like it would have been a big old chunk. So if you see here, if I just use my hand on there, you can kind of see how if you place the golf ball right here, if my club comes down and hits it right there, you can see that that's a couple inches behind the golf ball. That's not going to be good. And then you can just kind of slide it back. You can also tell your club path. So if you be hitting it like this, right? And then if I hit and my path was like that, I don't know if it's, there we go. So if my path was kind of in that direction, I'm trying to get the angle so where you can see it. You can see that that would be an in to out kind of path, right, for a right-handed golfer. So I think it's just a really cool kind of device that you can see this. AccuStrike mat is what it's called, and I can actually get you a link for that as well. If you follow this link, it will take you to the page where Clay did a video on it. I'm gonna paste it in there here in a second. Where Clay did a video on it, and you can find the purchase link below the video. If you use Clay Ballard indoor outdoor, I can't remember exactly what you'll see the promo codes in there. You'll get a small discount. Full disclaimer: we do get a little bit of a kickback from that. It's not a lot, but it does help us, to continue to make great videos and stuff for you guys. All right. So Nate V says, I've made some great strides, and then yesterday the dreaded shank return. Could I be overdoing something and getting too inside out? My driving has been great with a slight fade. So yeah, it's possible you could be overdoing something, swinging too much into out. Basically, if you start hitting shanks, the first thing that I would do is I would just try to hit the ball on the toe. Set up as you normally would, and then try to hit it on the toe. I see a lot of people when they start hitting shanks, they line it up on the heel, they line it up on the toe. And that can work for a couple shots, but then a lot of times we adapt because our brains are smart, and we'll just start hitting it off the hosel again. So line it up on the center the way you normally would, then try to hit it out here. That will more than likely move that strike closer to the center of the face. But if you are still in the heel, then you may need to exaggerate it even more. You may need to feel like you're coming in and missing this golf ball to get it to be more in the center of the face. Now, if you actually strike the ball in the toe, then just ease off of that feeling a little bit. That's all you got to do is just ease off and keep doing that until you actually are consistently striking on the toe. And then at that point, you're calibrated, right? Now, what also may be happening, and this is kind of the biggest thing that I see with people who hit off the heel a lot or hit a lot of shanks, is that they have what's called early extension. So as they're starting their downswing, their hips immediately move toward the golf ball, right? And kind of thrust forward, and we're kind of in this position right here. So if that happens, what you're doing is you're taking away space for your hands to work through, and you're going to end up hitting some shanks because you're pushing the hosel out there. So what I would recommend doing is trying to keep your hips back. As you start down, instead of going like this right away, feel like you're kind of sitting down like this and then extending. So I want to sit down and then extend up. That's the feeling that you want to have. And that's going to allow you to clear space. So that way that club has plenty of space to work through there. That's what I'd be looking at. The other thing is like what you talked about. If you swing too much into out, you're swinging way into out like this, that hosel is just heading right toward the golf ball. Basically, the club is coming in at an angle like this instead of coming in straight into it. So that hosel is just heading right toward the golf ball. So if that is the case, then I would look at swinging. If you see that you're not thrusting your hips and you're just swinging, you got all this space and you're just swinging a ton from the inside, then I would try to feel like you're swinging over the top, right? I try to feel like I feel like you're coming out like this. It's not the reality. The fault is that you're doing this, right? Too much from the inside. The feel is that you're going to be going like this, way over the top. But the reality is hopefully that you're more like this, right in the slot, right in the good place where you want to be. So that's what I'd be trying to do if you're hitting shanks. So Jamie's, I'm guessing it's James M, says, with driver, no matter how low I tee up the ball, I hit very high. If I hit anywhere right of center, the all keeps drifting. Because of the height, it can even end up in the trees. I have 2 drivers, 9 loft, 10.5 loft, makes no difference. How high I hit it. I don't want to swing downward, but that's the way to lower the flight. I get virtually no roll at all. So you're putting what you're doing is you're coming in and you're probably hitting it off the crown of the club if you're hitting it very high. So you're probably sliding forward and hitting it off the top of the face. So I'd use some foot powder spray it on the face. You can see I used to have some foot powder spray on here. And if I rub right there, you can see how it comes off. So when you hit the golf ball, you'll be able to see where that is. So I imagine you're just hitting this very high on the face. And what that's making it do, and you may be hitting it even on the crown a little bit, and it's making it kind of pop up in the air, and it's adding a ton of spin. And typically when I see people do that, it's because they are either playing the ball too far back in their stance and they're not allowing the ball to work up, or not allowing the club to work up into the golf ball, and or they're sliding forward. The low point is happening at the golf ball. So the club's coming down, it's reaching its low point right at the golf ball. Ideally, this club would come down, reach its low point, and then work up into the golf ball, and there you go. You're getting those center face strikes. So I would try to make sure that you're angled away, that your spine is angled away. You got that ball position there, and you're letting that club work up into the golf ball as you're coming into contact. You could also be adding a lot of loft. If you're coming into contact and you're going like this and really adding a lot of loft, that may be part of the issue as well. It's hard to say without seeing your swing. If that's the case, then I would work on, if you're casting, you may want to work on getting some lag. And then if you're getting some lag, you may want to work on kind of being able to maintain that lag a little bit as you're coming into contact. So that way you're in contact in this kind of position instead of you're coming into contact in this kind of position where you're adding a ton of loft. So that could be what's going on as well. It's hard to say without seeing your swing, but I would look at those things that's going on. So either one, you're coming down and you're basically popping it up because you're hitting it high on the face because you're sliding forward, and or the ball's teed up too far back in your stance, or you're adding loft by flipping a lot, and you may need to work through sections on the course on the website here to be able to de-loft the face a little bit more so that you don't hit it so high. But look on camera, see what's going on there. So Chester M says, I know that we need to square up the face with the move. I have been where some instructors say to grip it, spin it, and rip it. This pre-squares the club. That did seem to help me a couple of years back. Will that work in conjunction with the move? That is the move. So that's part of what the move is. So the move is shallowing out the club, right? So basically getting this club back on plane. Right, because in the backswing, when we swing back in the backswing, we swing higher than the actual plane, right? And then what we have to do, if we swung back down like that, it would be steep. So we have to shallow the club to get it on plane, and that makes it so that we don't have to make any compensations in the downswing to get it on plane. If you come down, if you bring it up steep and then you start down steep, you're going to have to stand up as you're coming into contact. To keep from sticking that club right into the ground, right? So that's the first part of the move. That's shallowing out the club. The second part of the move is what you just talked about. That's squaring of the face earlier. If I square that face earlier, now I can just rotate into contact. I can come down, I can be shallow, but then if I don't rotate and I have this face open, well, I'm going to need to save it at the end, and I'm just going to flip the club and roll my hands over hard to square it up. So the move gets you to where you're shallowing out. get you to where you're squaring up the face earlier. So that way you can just rotate into contact with the square club face, and that'll allow you to release the club out in front, get some forward shaft lean, get some good compression on there. Makes it easier to control your face and your path and all that good stuff. So yes, that is essentially the move, what you're talking about. One part of it anyway. Anel says, thanks for the response. I realize you also speak Spanish, so I may say it in Spanish next time. I took Spanish in high school, so I know how to pronounce the letters, but I probably will only be able to pick up like 25% of the words if you post something in Spanish. Because usually when we go to like a Mexican restaurant or something like that, the waitress will be talking to the hostess or something like that, and I'll know it's like, oh, she said something about the table, but I don't know what. So Bill I almost skipped Robert there. So Robert S says, I'm 73 years old and having distance problem. Most of it is contact on the club face, but club head speeds to be a big problem. Depending on the club speed, swing ranges between 60 and 75 miles per hour. What can I realistically expect for a maximum swing speed? I have used a lot of Clay's instructions and I've seen some improvement, but I feel I need more. So basically the average of what we've seen, people who go through our 20-minute distance fix program, the average is somewhere in the neighborhood of 12 miles per hour. So I would say that's realistic. So I don't know. I would do your swing initially in the program. It's going to be somewhere between 60 and 75. Whatever that number is, I would add 12 to it, and I would say that that's a reasonable expectation. But people come to our distance clinics, it's just for 2 days. Our goal is to get everyone 10 miles per hour, and I would say 75% of those people get at least 10 miles per hour more just in the 2 days that they're there at the distance clinic. So the 20-minute distance fix is a 3-week program. So you got 3 weeks. It's several more days to work on stuff. And typically it's about 12 miles per hour is what most people get. Now, some people, we've seen people get 20 some miles per hour, and that could be where you could be. And I've seen people that gain, 7, 8 miles per hour. So it just depends. But I would say a realistic would be 12. That's like the average if you work through the 20-minute distance fix. And Robert, if you haven't done the 20-minute distance fix, go to the top of the page, click that house icon, go to the home page, go to the scroll down, but you'll see where it says Top Speed Golf System Course Progress, I believe is what it says. You're going to see a list of all the courses that we offer on the website. Get started on that 20-minute distance fix, and you'll start hitting the ball a lot further for sure. So Bill R says, could you walk me through the forearm rotation on the takeaway, downswing, and follow through? Do the upper arms rotate along with your forearms? So really, everybody's going to be a little bit different on that. So when you're talking about forearm rotation, if you rotate the forearms more in the backswing, you're going to have to rotate the forearms more in the downswing to square it up. So it's really personal preference. I would just think about, in the takeaway, I would just think about, again, when I talked about getting to the backswing earlier, get into your backswing position, get into a dress position, hinge the club up 90 degrees, put the club up over your right shoulder, right, as much as you can, and then turn your hips in your shoulders as much as you can. There's the top of the backswing, okay? So there's my top of the backswing position. All I'm thinking about is how do I get there? So if that's a lot of forearm rotation early and less late, I'm not thinking about how I'm getting there. I'm only thinking about getting there. So don't overcomplicate the takeaway, folks. It's just get to that position at the top of the swing, and you'll be in good shape. Don't overcomplicate it. People who overcomplicate the takeaway, they're spending time on stuff that does not help them with their golf game. All right. So now if I got somebody who's bringing the club way inside and then they're coming over the top in the downswing, well, they're not really getting to that place at the top of the swing where they should be. They're getting over they're basically coming over like that, right? And someone who might be bringing the club way outside and then over shallowing out the club, right? They're not getting to that position. So just If you think about the position that you want to be at the top, and then just bring the club up to that position, however your body moves, that's the right way. That's the most natural way to do it. Don't overcomplicate it the other way. So however much your forearms rotate in the backswing to get into that position, that's how much they got to rotate in the downswing to square up the face. So Damien F says, I love the fact that you raise your left heel in the backswing. That's how I learned and how to play this game. I used to swing as hard as I could with control on my drives when I was on the golf team. My problem is that over the past 15 years, I've had 2 shoulder surgeries, a microdiscectomy in lower back, and another microdiscectomy in my neck. This wasn't all because I golfed. I played so long story short, I started sliding in my downswing around 15 years ago. The funny thing is that I can hit my blades 3-wood with great accuracy, but I can't get off the tee with my driver. Saw your YouTube video about how to turn your hips by pushing your back foot behind you on the downswing. Do you think Bobby Jones, Nicklaus felt that on their downswing? I'm not really sure, but yeah, probably. Most likely. I mean, feel is really relative, right? So they may have felt something else, but accomplished the same thing. But yeah, it's probably likely that they felt something like that or tried to feel something like that. You know, a lot of times when you're learning how to move your body, you go through stages, right? So if you're learning to change something, you start out in what's called unconscious incompetence. This is where you're unaware that you're doing something wrong, but you're unconsciously doing it. And then you go into what's called conscious incompetence. This is where you're aware that you're not doing something that you should be doing, but you're incompetent in doing it. Like you can't get yourself to do it. You're not doing it the right way yet. Then you go into what's called conscious competence. This is where you are aware that you have to do it and you are doing it correctly. And then after some time of doing that, you go into what's called unconscious competence. This is where you do it without any thought at all. So I'll tell you, Bobby Jones and Jack Nicklaus were probably in that unconscious competence stage. It was probably something that they did naturally and didn't even have to think about it. You know, if you ask them, how do you lift your foot or do this or that, they probably would tell you, I don't know, I just do it, right? So that's basically how that works for the most part. So a couple more questions here. So Robert M says, I'm trying to understand what initiates club moving forward, downward from the top of the backswing, upper, not lower body. Should it be the arms, hands, or should the shoulders move the arms, hands like a fulcrum? It's going to be the lower body first. So basically, you're starting this backswing, right? You're getting back in the backswing, and then basically what's initiating that downswing as I'm continuing to go back, I'm starting to get lower, right? And you can see my hips are starting to go like this. Go look at tour players swing. This is what you're going to see. You're going to see as they go up to the top, as they're reaching the top, you're going to see the hips start to go first. They get their legs into the ground. It's basically our hips and our core are what's starting the downswing. So that's going, right? So my club hasn't even moved, hasn't started to go back in this other way. This is technically when the downswing starts, is when the club switches directions. But what's initiating this club switching directions is basically my middle here, my core, and my hips. So that's all from we're getting down lower. And what that would look like from this direction would be I'm getting my belt buckle turned down toward the ground. So they're getting this action. And then that's pulling, my core is pulling my shoulders. My shoulders are pulling my arms. My arms are bringing my hands, and my hands bring the club. It happens in that sequence with the most efficient and best hitters. So that's really what's happening there. So if you scroll down, Robert, if you scroll down, you're going to find a little bit below your comment. I posted a link there. It's called How to Start the Golf Downswing Correctly. In that, there's a drill. It's called the step drill. Excuse me. There's a step drill. Work on that drill. And that's going to help you to get that initiated correctly, because it's getting you to get that momentum shift to your lead side so that you can initiate with your lower body then your middle, basically your middle and your lower body, and then it's the shoulders, then it's the arms, then it's the hands, then it's the club that whips through. All right, so Tim F says, I'm trying to get into the correct impact position with ankle, hip, and shoulder lined up. It seems like I don't have enough separation between my hips and shoulder rotation on my downswing. Any ideas to improve that? Yes, side bend. So side bend is what has to happen in order to get that separation. Otherwise, so if you imagine if I just rotate my hips and I have no side bend, my shoulders are more than likely gonna go with it. So I have some thoracic spine separation, right? Which usually you can get about 45 degrees. So if I just keep my hips square and then turn my shoulders, I can get that's all in my thoracic spine, basically my upper spine, that's allowing me to rotate. All right. So if I do that, right, and I rotate my hips, well, here my shoulders are. But then now I have to get here. I have to get side bend, right? So now I'm in that position. Now, I wouldn't get too, your shoulders do not have to be square and your hips have to be 45 degrees open. You can look at Rory McIlroy. Rory McIlroy, I mean, he's like this at contact. Basically, his hips are open and his shoulders are way open too. So we need to get the chest actually open. That needs to be open for sure. The shoulders can be square to open, and that's completely fine. So the main thing is getting the body to open up as you're coming in. Don't restrict your opening of your body because you're trying to keep your shoulders square. Now, what you'll need to do is as your body opens up more, the club needs to be more behind you, right? So if I open up my body and I don't put that club, so if I'm used to coming down like this, and at this point in the swing, I'm kind of like this. I have the club kind of more out in front of me, and my chest is closed off. Well, if I open up my chest, now look where the club is. That's not going to work, right? So I need to get this club more behind me as I'm coming down. I need to get the arm kind of cinched to my chest here, really pulling up against my chest. There's actually a great drill that Clay told me about. He actually made a video about it recently. If you get these, they're like little TheraBand things. They're basically just long strips of rubber. They're like kind of resistance bands. And you take it and you wrap it around the club head. And then you take the other end of it, right, and you tuck it underneath your armpit here. And what you can do is that's going to be tucked under your armpit and attached to the club head. And what it forces you to do is it forces you to keep pressure and keep that arm cinched to your chest, and it forces you to open up as you're coming in. So, because when you release the club early and you flip, you come in like that. That arm comes away from the chest, and a lot of you will get that chicken wing kind of action. So if you keep that arm tight to the chest here at impact, you have to rotate, right? Otherwise, you won't be able to get the club to the golf ball. If you don't rotate, it's just going to stay right here. And then my arm's going to come off the chest and I flip. So if I keep that cinched to the chest, I have to rotate into contact and get into that great impact position there, right? So I may be able to cheat it and maybe flip at the last second and stand up. But typically to get down, if you get down here, you're going to be in good shape with it. So work on that. That'd be a good one probably for you to work on getting that rotation. But basically what has to happen is you got to get that side bend. So there's a great drill that you can do to kind of help you get into this position. And that would be to take your address position here and then take the club and put it up on your right shoulder. After you do that, rotate your hips as much as you possibly can. All right. So for me, that's probably about 60 degrees. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get my shoulders to be vertical with the ground. Basically be perpendicular with the ground. And that would look something like this, right? So you can see side bend that I have there. Then I'm going to put the club back down on the ground. And that's like an extreme, really, really extreme impact position. If you look at it from this angle, I've done this in office hours a while back. This is an old Kelvin, I think it's Kelvin Miyahira, I think is his name, instructor. I saw this on a video that he did a long time ago. But basically, take the club, put it up over your right shoulder, rotate your hips as much as you can, and then try to get your shoulders vertical to the ground. Again, this is extreme, by the way. This would be like the position that Camera Champ is getting in, super extreme. Probably not physically possible to get in the swing for most people, but it's a good kind of drill that can kind of help you feel like, okay, well, this is where I need to be. So you can see right here, my hips, my body's open up, my chest is open up. The only reason why my shoulders don't look like they're a mile open is because of side bend, and also because my lead shoulder is protracting. So my shoulders can move independently of my chest. So if I have my chest, right, and I go and I protract and I retract, I haven't moved much. My chest is still pointing straight forward, but my shoulders have rotated probably 20 degrees. So that's what's happening there. So I would maybe work on that TheraBand drill. TheraBand, I think it's called a TheraBand. It might be called a TheraBand. It's just like a thin rubber band that you use. Don't get the power lifter ones; those are going to be too much. But if you get kind of the really stretchy ones, and then you can wrap it around the club head, put it under your armpit, and that'll force you to kind of put a little bit of tension there. That'll force you to open up your chest as you're coming in. Otherwise, it's going to snap out of there. So Alan K says, "Hi Q, I am your newest full access member. I was thinking about signing up for a monthly video coaching, but decided to load the V1 app on my phone and iPad first to see how well it worked. It failed miserably. Neither iPad or iPhone was able to function properly. Is this a problem from time to time with them? I'm hesitant to sign up for coaching on a problematic app. What should I do?" I mean, I haven't had any issues with the app. I mean, with any app, there's going to be issues sometimes, but as far as I know, the app actually works the best on iPhones. So not really sure what the problem is. I would say that that's not a normal thing. But if you got, I don't understand. Do you have any information about how it's exactly functioning improperly? When you sign up for the swing reviews, we tell you exactly how we give you instructions on how to make it work. So it's probably it may just be, a little bit of user learning curve to get that to work. So Jim S says, "I'm having trouble lining up on short par 3 holes going right of the green. Where do you look for a drill on it?" So when I'm lining up, on any shot, really, what I do is I get behind the shot between the golf ball and my target. So my target may not necessarily, basically my starting line would be my target. So I get behind the golf ball in my starting line. And what I'll do is I'll imagine the ball flight, right? I'll play a little movie in my mind of the ball flight. And then I'll pick a spot that's about a foot or two in front of my golf ball. Because when you line up to the ball, it's a little bit hard when you get like this. It's kind of hard to line up at a target that's way out there. But if you pick a spot that's between your target line, that's on your target line and a couple feet, a foot or two in front of your golf ball, it's much easier to come in. And then I'm just lining up the face with that little point that's out in front of my ball. And then I can kind of look at the target and line up my feet and then take my shot. That's how I would recommend lining up. So David K says, "Hi Q, any drills to practice keeping my trail elbow in tight on the downswing?" Yeah, so we have lots of drills on the website. The main thing I would say is that the most simple and easiest drill would be just to go up to the top of the swing, pause, and then I would come down halfway down, and I would get right here, right? So I get right here, elbow in, and then from there, I'd swing through into the full finish. I would do several of those. And then I would try to do a really slow, fluid one. So really, really slow, no golf ball, really, really slow, fluid, going up the top, getting the elbow in, getting that to work right. And for those of you who don't understand why we want the elbow to come in, if that elbow comes out, you're going to come over the top. If you watch right here, if I keep that elbow out. So in order to come in shallow and have that club nicely on plane, we want to get that elbow kind of working into the body a little bit. So I would try to add some fluidity to this, right? Add some fluidity to this. And then what you can do is try to add the golf ball and do the same thing. One thing you can also do is take a ball. Now I don't have something that's like it would be maybe like volleyball size. Basically, have it between your elbows, right? So have a ball between your elbows, right? So it would be a bigger ball than this, but something volleyball size. I don't have anything quite that size. But basically, you would have it like this, and then you go up to the top and keep that ball in there. And if you brought your elbow out, then the ball would come out, right? So you can put a ball in there, and that will force you to keep your elbows together. Now you could still go like this and come down really steep, but that's at least going to help you to get your elbows more together instead of separating, which is typically why people come down like that. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up there for today. Thanks for joining me. We'll be back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern time. So thanks everybody for joining me today. Everybody have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time.